Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo were back in the lineup on Wednesday, combining for 50 points in a 14-point win, putting the clamps on LeBron James and the Lakers just when it mattered most. The Heat got back on track and over 500, especially important as they get set to kick off a 5-game road trip. We break down the game and look ahead to the challenges that lie ahead on today's Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. However, you might be tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or on your favorite podcast app. Thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. We are coming to you from a random room inside of FTX Arena, where the Miami Heat just beat the Los Angeles Lakers 112-98. And after leading by as many as 22 points, it looked like the Heat were cruising to an easy win over the Lakers. The Lakers coming in from Orlando on the second night of a back-to-back. But LeBron James and the Lakers were not going to go down easy. They end up making a huge fourth quarter run, cut the lead to 7 with only 4 minutes to go. But that's when Miami's defense stepped up. Caleb Martin stole the ball from a LeBron James post-up. That led to a clutch Tyler Herro three-pointer from the corner in Miami's second straight game that Tyler Herro hit a clutch three-pointer from the corner. And that put the Heat back up 10 with 2 minutes to go, and they were able to seal the win with that. Jimmy Butler had 27 points. Bam finished with 23 points and 14 rebounds. Tyler Herro finished with 18 points and 9 assists on a night that Kyle Lowry was a late scratch due to personal reasons. All of this to best LeBron James and a diminished Lakers squad. If you've been living under a rock, Anthony Davis is not available for the Lakers because of his injury. So it's basically LeBron and a bunch of Wenyen Gabriels, pretty much. And the Heat, mostly healthy. Obviously, no Kyle Lowry. Gabe Vincent stepping up into the starting lineup, doing a nice job tonight. And then everybody else helping with the playmaking duties. Bam playing nearly every minute of the second half. The Heat going small to match up with the small ball Lakers, switching 1 through 5 and forcing, 26 turnovers in the game. Again, all of this on a night when LeBron had his usual 27 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, the typical LeBron James stat line, but quite clearly not enough to beat the Heat tonight.
I think it was still a good win. I think we can break down the fact that the Lakers were tired coming off the second night of a back-to-back. I totally understand that. They're also without Anthony Davis, as you mentioned. They're sloppy. They're not a particularly good team. And yet somehow, we know this about the Miami Heat. They struggle with every game. They force themselves to work harder than they probably should each and every time they're out on the floor. And despite that, I think there was a tenacity, a consistency today that was still indicative of what the best version of this Heat team could be. They got great defense, big shots down the stretch, solid play from their 2 stars in Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, great defense on LeBron James, who looked early on like he was just going to be on absolute fire. He wasn't fantastic tonight, and still I think they did a pretty good job of limiting what he could do, limiting his playmaking abilities, getting everybody going. We've seen from LeBron, well, he was here in Miami or in Cleveland or Los Angeles or anywhere, with him and 4 other people out there, that's still enough to beat even the very best teams in the NBA. And I think Miami did a really good job of trying to hinder what he can do and to just continue to play to their strengths and come out with a victory, especially important as they go on this road trip. Yeah,
I tweeted it at the beginning of the fourth quarter. LeBron James is in there. You knew, even as shorthanded as the Lakers are, that they were going to give it one last push.
Absolutely.
On the second night of a back-to-back, LeBron, we were not even sure he was going to play.
Right.
Just by the fact that he was participating in this basketball game, you knew that he was going to give his all, and he did. And what happened? The Lakers made a run, and they made it a game, and so credit to them. But also looking at this from the Heat's perspective, which we ought to do since it's Locked On Heat, look, they have been a team that has given up late leads a lot this season. But they have lost games after giving up late leads a lot earlier in the season. Recently, yes, they're still giving up some of those leads, but they're not losing the games. They're still escaping with a W instead of an L. And to me, that's really important. It shows a modicum of growth, right? Obviously, you wouldn't prefer not to give up these leads, but this is the NBA, man. Like, 22-point leads are nothing anymore.
They don't matter.
It doesn't. It's not. You expect, especially a team with somebody as great as LeBron. Great point. If you have LeBron and 4 other dudes, you got a chance, right? And so they were going to make that push, and the Heat held on. The Heat were 9-9 in their first 18 clutch games this season. I believe they're 5-1 in their last 6. They might be 6-1 in their last 7. I'm not really sure. I can't remember. I think the Minnesota game counts as a clutch game. So
win,
yeah, it was a 3-point win. So I think I believe they're 5-1 in their last 6 clutch games. That's growth. That's important, right?
You've got to be able to close out these games. Regardless of the size of your lead, you have to be able to do what you do best. In Miami's case, it's slow the pace down, play great defense. We saw great possessions there from Bam, Jimmy Butler, Caleb, everybody stepping up, double teams, whatever was necessary, coming up with turnovers, forcing those turnovers, and holding on to the ball. Only 5 turnovers for the Heat on the night.
Yeah.
Fantastic performance from them. Look, I'm going to find a way to be encouraged by this rather than look at it as, oh, they just beat a bad team. Because we know that LeBron, when he's available, when he chooses to play against the Miami Heat, you know he's going to bring his best performance. And it did look like early on he was going to be as dominant as he's ever been. He was just so comfortable, kind of almost testing guys, defenders, just waiting to see whether or not they were going to play up on him and be willing to take that shot. Miami responded. They took the punch. And as you said, a 20-point lead does not matter in today's NBA. That's a couple of threes, a couple of possessions, a turnover here, a turnover there. Next thing you know, it's basically an even game. Miami able to hold on, keep them at bay, and do what they needed to seal it with a double-digit lead. I mean, that's all you can ask for.
5 steals from Jimmy Butler tonight. Let's talk about the Jimmy and LeBron matchup. The stat lines are eerily similar.
Oh, yeah.
We'll start with LeBron. 27 points on 10 of 18 shooting, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. Jimmy Butler, 27 points on 11 of 18 shooting. Both of them took 18 shots. Both of them scored 27 points.
I would go so far as to say
5 rebounds and
that Jimmy Butler made one more shot than LeBron just to say, I'm better than you.
He was better than LeBron tonight. He got the win.
He was.
From a look, offensively, they scored the same amount of points. So it's not that big of a deal. And you can point to, hey, well, LeBron had 9 rebounds. He had 6 assists. Jimmy had 5 rebounds and Jimmy had 4 assists. Defensively, Jimmy Butler was on another level than LeBron. And that shouldn't be news to anybody at this stage in their careers. Jimmy Butler basically has to give it on both ends in order to be considered a top 10 player. LeBron can basically just cruise his way, still at 40 years old, to being a top 10 player. But tonight, there was just, with Jimmy Butler coming up with those 5 steals, obviously contributing to the 26 turnovers overall. Jimmy Butler was a big part of setting that tone. And LeBron defensively, like there was a moment late in the game where Jimmy Butler got into the paint, came off of a screen, blew by Russell Westbrook, and then just blew right by LeBron James. LeBron James was the help. He was the second defender. He was the backside defender. He was the help guy there. He's supposed to at least tag Jimmy Butler, if not just completely outright, block his lane to the rim. And LeBron just sort of let him go. He was just sort of the cape for a matador there. And I don't really understand why LeBron did it. I guess second night of a back-to-back.
It's a
taxing season, I guess, but there was no effort there. But whatever. Like Jimmy Butler was the guy who gave the effort and played big for what kind of felt like you're talking about maybe like trying to find the positives. I thought this game was really positive. It felt like a big game for the Heat. Like I know it's the Lakers and they suck right now, but it's LeBron James. He's in Miami. Jimmy Butler is coming back from the ankle thing. The Heat are mostly, we thought they were going to be whole. Kyle Lowry was such a late scratch that it kind of, you got amped up for this game. You're like, wow, a whole Miami Heat team. Who knew that could be a thing? And so this game felt big.
Yeah, I agree. I think, big performance from Jimmy, telling us after the game that he's straight. His ankle's not going to be a problem. He says he's comfortable moving forward. Let's see if he actually plays all 5 games of that 5-game road trip. But more importantly, I think playing that defense, talking about how well he's played the passing lanes in the past. I'm not sure I believe that anecdote that he's shared with us, but at the same time, still, we've seen the evidence from Jimmy that he's a very strong defender, and just the anticipation, the timing, perfect. We saw it from Caleb, too, on occasion.
Yeah,
I think
he's so good.
It's rubbed off on everybody.
Yeah,
the defense was another level tonight against a bad Lakers team, but still, it doesn't matter. We've seen this Heat team play badly against lesser opponents. They didn't take
but let's also not act like the Heat are sitting here at 22-9. They just got to a game over 500 again. This is an average, by their record, an average basketball team. How do you go from average to good? You beat the bad teams. That's what the Heat have been doing lately. Can they continue it? They're not going to be playing bad teams on the road. We're going to talk about this challenging trip in the third segment. We've got credit cookies coming up that we're going to get to here after the break. You also hinted at the anecdote that Jimmy Butler shared with us. Let's explore that a little bit. You said you don't believe it. I'm curious why. We'll talk about that next, but first, tell the listeners about our sponsor.
Well, look, the New Year's coming up, and if your New Year's goals are to manage your budget better and save money, what you need is Rocket Money. Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill, is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills all in one place. Over 80% of people have subscriptions they forgot about, like that streaming service you bought to watch just one show on, or that free trial that you never even use. Rocket Money will quickly and easily identify your subscriptions for you so you can stop paying for the ones you want. It's so great. You save tons of money by signing up to Rocket Money. So stop throwing your money away, cancel unwanted subscriptions, and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/LockedOnNBA. That's rocketmoney.com/LockedOnNBA. rocketmoney.com/LockedOnNBA.
Thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Well, it's a Heat win, which means it's time to get into the kitchen and whip up some credit cookies. David, what kind of cookies do we have today?
Generic brand chocolate chip cookies. The classic.
Why?
Because this is a good generic win. It's not a great win. It can't be like Mrs. Fields, or it can't be like Famous Amos. It can't be Chips Ahoy.
Oh, I love Famous Amos.
Sure, everybody loves Famous Amos.
Famous Amos or Chips Ahoy?
To me, Famous Amos.
Yeah, I don't think it's close.
No.
I won't say no to a Chips Ahoy cookie if somebody gave one to me right now, but like I would pick Famous Amos.
I see a friend of mine eat a whole row of those at one sitting.
All right, so we've got chocolate chip cookies. We got 10 of them to hand out to various Heat players for their credit in tonight's win. Let's start with Jimmy Butler. Yeah, we mentioned the stat line, the 5 steals there. He shared an anecdote with us after the game saying that Rip Hamilton,
old teammate Richard,
one of my favorite all-time players, by the way. I loved Rip Hamilton.
God, he didn't get punched enough to be wearing that mask on his face.
So I was a kid when Rip Hamilton was a big deal, and so I liked the fact that he was like, I was like, oh, he's different. He wears a mask, and that was like enough for me as a child.
Yeah, no, I get it.
So I like those Pistons teams.
Gritty until they faced Miami, and then,
So anyway, he shared the anecdote that with Rip Hamilton, I had forgotten that he had spent some time in Chicago at the end of his career. I completely forgot until Jimmy told us this.
Too, Hamilton
talked about how Jimmy Butler was a late first-round pick, and he said, I wasn't very good, so nobody wanted to give me the ball. Rip told me that, hey, if you want to score and you want to get your hands on the ball, play really good defense, steal the ball, and then you could just get easy layups. But you're telling me you don't believe him?
I don't buy that Jimmy, as a first-round pick, earned his way into Tom Thibodeau's lineup by playing
defense?
No, not by playing defense. By playing defense to get points. Like Jimmy doesn't care how many points he wins. Even early versions of Jimmy didn't care. Like, if we ask him that same question 4 other times, he would give 4 completely different answers.
I don't disagree with that, but I also don't think that he just made up. No, he wasn't asked specifically about Rip Hamilton. For him to just conjure Rip Hamilton from the dead.
Get your points and get your points easy by layups. Jimmy was already going to do it anyway. He was already going to steal the ball anyway, because that's just the kind of defense he brought in order to earn an NBA roster spot. But he wasn't going to be like, oh, you know what? Let me get the cherry on top and get a couple extra points.
You're just hating on Rip Hamilton for no reason.
Absolutely.
That's what I think. Jimmy Butler, how many credit cookies for him tonight?
5.
That's fair. Let's go right to Bam Adebayo, though. He played almost every minute of the second half, and I found actually Eric Spoelstra's decision on that really interesting. So Spo sees that the Lakers, and I had criticized Spo previously to not really game planning against what the other team is doing, kind of just trying to manage his own thing a little bit too much, maybe a little bit of tunnel vision on his own rotations and strategies. Tonight, he very much coached against Darvin Ham and the Lakers. He sees that the Lakers, they had Thomas Bryant starting at center for them. After that, no real centers off the bench. They played Wenyen Grabler a little bit at the spot. No Damian Jones, the DNP-CD. He's their backup center. Not tonight. It was LeBron James playing a lot of the 5 in the second half, and Spo sees that and says, you know what? We're going to play Bam the entire game, basically the entire second half. Orlando Robinson, as impressive as he's been, this is not his kind of matchup. It's not Rudy Gobert plotting, Minnesota Timberwolves team. This is a LeBron and Lakers that want to kind of get out and run and try to find an advantage and tilt things in their favor that way. And he says, no, not going to happen. I'm going to play Bam nearly the entire second half. No Dwayne Dedmon tonight, worth mentioning. Obviously, no Omer Yurtseven. And so Bam has to play basically the entire second half, and they start switching everything 1 through 5, which is something that we have seen them do less of this season. No PJ Tucker, so they don't do it as much. They also like to incorporate a whole lot of zone, drop coverage here and there, and stuff like that. So we haven't really seen the full tilt, total chaos, 1 through 5, switch everything all the time. We did see it tonight, and Bam was a huge part of it, not to mention 23 points on 16 shots and 14 rebounds.
I made a note early on in the game, even before seeing that second half performance from him, that Bam Adebayo was playing like the biggest player out there in a way that we haven't seen from him. He was just larger than life.
Said.
As great as he's been, he was just dominating, attacking the paint early on. Thomas Bryant, bigger, by all accounts, obviously, physically.
He's a big guy.
But at the same time, Bam made him look small out there. And he was able to impose himself in a way that we have not seen consistently or regularly, but that we've seen more of over the course of the season. He was fantastic. I've got to give him at least 3, maybe even 4 credit cookies tonight.
He deserves 4. But we got to give him 3 because we got too many else to give out.
I got you.
Tyler hit the clutch three-pointer. It wasn't necessarily to break a tie or get the win, but it sealed the win. I don't know. Again, is that worth a cookie? Probably. Gabe Vincent, hey buddy, we thought Kyle Lowry was going to play. Now you have to start. Like, that takes some cojones there to just sort of step into the starting lineup and do that, especially after being out of rhythm and not playing a whole lot recently. And then Caleb Martin, I thought his defense was amazing tonight. I love watching Caleb Martin play. He is getting, and this is not just because he just came onto the show. This is a guy who has completely figured out his role, and he just always makes the right decision on both ends of the court. Offensively, he was just spacing the court, always in the right place, cutting when he was supposed to. Defensively, always in the right spot. I know we mentioned the Tyler Herro clutch 3. The reason Tyler Herro got that 3-pointer was because the Heat forced another turnover because Caleb Martin just found the right time in transition to double LeBron James in the post. He perfectly timed it. LeBron panicked a little bit, tried to pass out of the post, and then Caleb just stole the pass, went down. Tyler Herro ends up with the clutch 3 that seals the win. It feels like we don't have enough credit cookies to give out, but let's give 3 to Bam, 1 to Caleb, and what do we have? One left. 1 to Tyler or Gabe. You pick. Dealer's choice.
Take 1 off of Jimmy's here and give it to him.
Fine. Yeah. So
4 for Jimmy, 3 for Bam, 1 for Caleb, 1 for Tyler.
All right. I got to write this down. So I got to keep track. I don't know where my pen is. I'll remember it later. All right. So there it is. Shout out to Victor Oladipo, 3 steals. He's not getting a credit cookie because he went 1 of 7 for shooting. Really rough offensive night. The one thing on Vic that I just feel like we need to mention, stop trying to prove you're that guy. I'm not saying that you're not, but just stop trying to prove it to everybody. These step back threes early in the shot clock, these ill-advised shots, they are just offense killers, and there's a reason why he was pulled out of the game late. Despite the defense. The defense was awesome. The defense has been awesome. Taking nothing away from he's the best, most disruptive, maybe not the best, but the most disruptive on-ball defender minute to minute that the Heat have on the roster.
That's fair.
But he made just one too many mistakes where he would just stop the ball and he would just stop the offense and they would end up without any points. Yep. And Spo took him out late in the game. There was like 4 minutes left and Spo pulled him. And Victor Oladipo was really upset going on the sideline. He smacked some papers off of the scorer's table and everything like that because he missed an open 3 that LeBron just gave him, by the way. It was an wide open 3, and LeBron was like, shoot it. And Victor Oladipo was like, bet, and then he missed. Right. So he's...
probably frustration on himself.
Frustration on himself for missing that 3, but also, moreover, like, just don't put yourself in those situations. Just make the right pass, make the right read, make the right play. The offense will come to him eventually. He's trying to force it too much.
I don't know that it will. I think this is I see in him something similar to what we see from players that are older, kind of like Russell Westbrook. They're no longer that type of player, and they have to adjust to a different role. He can still provide elite bursts here and there of speed, attacking the paint, and playing high-level defense, but he's just not that scorer yet, and I don't know that he will be, and that's fine. I don't think they actually need him to be. He's better when he can just concentrate on being a distributor, an attacking defensive player, and again, getting to the rim, creating opportunities for himself and others as far as rebounds and putbacks and things of that sort. So I think there's a role for him to play. He just hasn't learned exactly yet how to embrace it.
The Heat's most important stretch of the season begins this weekend. We'll tell you why this trip could determine the direction that the Heat go after this. But first, tell listeners about our sponsor, David.
Today's episode brought to you by the National Highway and Traffic Safety Administration. You're hanging out with some friends Putting back a few drinks, a few becomes a few too many. And as the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you think of calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. You can make it home, okay? It's no big deal. What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that can happen? Your insurance goes up. You lose your license. Maybe you lose your job. You total your car. You kill someone. Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. It only makes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over.
Reach Locked On Heat on Twitter, Instagram, email us, lockedonheat@gmail.com. Send in questions for our post-game shows with the hashtag AskLOHeat. The Heat begin a 5-game trip on Friday in Denver before heading to Utah. 2 games against both Los Angeles teams and then a game in Phoenix. 5 games against 4 teams in the playoff picture, and then these same Lakers who will probably be motivated in that one. So going in, the Heat are 18-17 right now. They can either remain above 500 or slip below 500. Going into another tough stretch of the schedule that includes games against the Brooklyn Nets, 2 against the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm going to go ahead and just say this. We're going into now the most important part of the Heat season. If they slip in these next several games, starting with these 5 on the road, going into January, they're going to be halfway through the season. If they slip halfway through the season under 500, this stretch with these 5 road games and then the tough home games right after that basically takes them to January 14th. On January 15th, everybody on this roster becomes trade eligible. I bring that up only because the Heat have hovered around 500, an average team all season long. These next 8-9 games will determine whether or not the Heat are going to be buyers or sellers at the deadline. Yeah. It's going to determine whether or not they have a realistic shot at the playoffs or if they're a play-in team at best in the Eastern Conference. These next 5 games are huge, and I'll point to these 2 quotes before we throw it to you here. Bam says we got 5 tough ones. That much is obvious. They've been looking ahead. They know the teams they understand what this part of the schedule means. Spo, even more specific, saying, quote, our guys are intelligent. They understand what this road trip is about, end quote. What do you think about this trip? What do you think about the Heat's chances on this one?
Extremely dangerous. As definitive a point in the season as there's been, and maybe it's a hole that they've dug for themselves that you're looking at this 5-game road trip. In the past, maybe if your record was a little better to start off the season, you could afford to go below 500 on the road trip, and it wouldn't necessarily damage your impact or in the standings as much as it does this time. They've dug themselves into this hole, and now they have to find a way out of it. And this is not a good place to be because, as you said, very, very, very tough, challenging games here. A back-to-back set against Denver and Utah, both games that they have traditionally not been able to win.
Yeah, good point. On the road, those are tough teams.
High altitude,
Jokic playing MVP caliber basketball.
Absolutely. I mean, the defense has improved for Denver. They're getting fantastic performances from a potential all-star in Aaron Gordon. So he's been
playing great.
He's been playing very, very well. They're starting to get some of their role players to form.
Jamal Murray
getting better. And then Utah cooled off a little bit after their hot start, but still a dangerous team playing at home. Again, high altitude. They're still a good team. And Miami traditionally drops us, especially, again, the second night of a back-to-back. Assuming everybody's healthy to start off the road trip. At this point, we don't even know what Kyle's status is for this 5-game road trip. He might be out for an extended point of time. Then you go into Los Angeles, take on these 2 teams that are both motivated. The Clippers are a very, very good team. They're an actual title contender.
Kawhi looks great.
Your one winnable game is the last game of the road trip, and that's because the Phoenix Suns have lost Devin Booker for an extended amount of time, so they'll be without him. And you still can't count that necessarily. You can't pencil that in automatically as a win either, despite the fact that they're shorthanded.
Yeah, because it's the end of a long trip. Playing, the Suns are still winning games despite being as injured as they are. So yeah, you're right.
Miami beat them here and home, and yet Phoenix will be motivated to show them that they're a better team than what they showed here in Miami. So, and
then you come back home and you play Brooklyn with Kevin Durant playing at an MVP level. Kyrie Irving is playing great. Their entire rotation is stepping up over this last, 20 or so games. They're the number 1 offense in the league by far. They have a top 10 defense. Like, the Brooklyn Nets are no longer a team to just sort of joke about. They are playing like a title contender right now.
Oh, absolutely.
They are a title contender. Then you play Oklahoma City, who are really frisky.
Yeah.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to be an all-star in the Western Conference. Might end up making an all-NBA team this year. You can't sleep on the Thunder. The problem is that could be a trap game because after that you play Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks for 2 straight games, January 12th and January 14th. So that again takes you to January 14th. After that you end up back on the road in Atlanta, in New Orleans, in Dallas. But that's so far in the future. We don't even have to talk about it now because these games take you right up until the everybody likes to say December 15th was the unofficial start of trade season. Let me count the amount of trades that have happened so far. Oh wait, 0. Okay, that was fast. January 15th is when the rest of the league becomes trade eligible. Even I can do the math on that. Thank you very much. The Heat, Victor Oladipo, Dwayne Dedmon, those guys become trade eligible. Now it's all on the table. And if you are under 500 at that point, I think you have to seriously look at that and say, you know what? What are we really doing here? How many of these guys on expiring contracts do we feel like bringing back in terms of Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, Omer Yurtseven? Is Victor Oladipo a long-term fit here? Is he going to get over these offense, like stopping the ball on offense? Can we survive on that? Is what he gives us defensively enough to live with that? Do we think that he'll grow out of this? You look at a guy like Dwayne Dedmon. That's basically an expiring salary given how little of the second year on that is guaranteed. So can you flip him for some salary relief for another team? Do you start to explore the Duncan Robinson option a little bit more aggressively? There's a lot of things that could be on the table for the Miami Heat there. On the other side, if they come out of this over 500, which would mean a winning record on this really tough trip that few teams in the league would have a winning record on. Then all of a sudden you're looking at yourself like, oh my God, we're whole, we're healthy, hopefully. Maybe we can actually make a run at this thing. Maybe we should be buyers come January 15th up until the February 9th trade deadline. So we're only going to be a little bit more than halfway through the season by the time it's over. But this next stretch is going to determine what the second half of the season looks like, without a doubt.
I don't think it's possible to make a prediction on what they can do in this 5-game road trip. We could say 2-3, 3-2, 0-5, 5-0. All of these options are on the table because that's just the version of this team that we've seen. This current iteration of this team has played really well and played really badly. What matters, and I think what's underscoring all of this, is the fact that they got this win tonight and they won against Minnesota. Those are the games that you have to win, and they were able to pull it off. Now they've built some momentum going on this 5-game road trip, gives them a little bit of a cushion, and hopefully starts building in the right direction, getting trending and starting to build some of the good habits that they need so that they can show some when they're facing this adversity in this 5-game road trip, they'll be a little bit more apt to handle it, I think, than they have been in the past. Earlier on in the season, they're trending in the right direction. We've talked about this before. They could lose a game here and there. Sure, they might look badly against one of these 5 teams, all of whom are very, very good playoff optional teams. And at the same time, Miami still, I think, has shown the kind of tenacity that they can handle this sort of challenge on the road.
Caleb Martin telling the show yesterday, it feels like we're clicking. It feels like we're rounding into shape. It feels like all these things. Well,
let's prove it.
It's a pretty good test coming up. Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Remember to subscribe to new episodes of Locked On Heat on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Ring the bell to get notified as soon as new episodes go up. Thank you to everybody that got us to our annual goal, 5,000 subscribers. Thank you to everybody. But don't stop hitting that subscribe button. If you're listening this long, why haven't you? For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. It's the biggest stories of the day, instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts.